I love Pathfinder the Adventure card game. And I've talked about the mechanics, I've talked about the narrative, and why, as both a board gamer and a role-playing gamer, it pulls me in. And I pushed that podcast, that vlog, up to my channel under the board gaming playlist. We've explored some of the ideas over on my blog. No need to recover and focus on that. But I have to say, with this podcast, the core second edition is out. We have the first, I was going to say expansion, but Adventure Path. This is a new way of imaging the series. And even as a fanboy of it, I'm a little bit worried. I'm a little bit possibly concerned with the momentum. And I wonder if the very marketing strategy that has made this game a success is now somewhat strangling it. And if it's going to be able to regain some of that momentum. And certain people, enthusiasts, have been asking on forums and to the company, hey, this is great. The second edition is great. It fixed so much. We're hungry for future adventure paths. And the response is, we have to see. We have to see the numbers. We have to see if it's worth publishing another one. And the question I wonder asking that is, Edition 1, all the adventure paths, Rune Lords, which was my favorite, Mummy's Mask, the pirate one, in addition to what, honestly, and I have a few of them myself, 50 or 60 encounter and class decks, that average retail when they were in print, about $20 a pop. I mean, a massive, massive set and amount of cards. And it's interesting because the game is not billed as a living card game. But in many ways, it is a living card game. Or I should say, it's playable both as a card game or a living card game on there, depending if you're in the Adventure League or how you want to approach it. But my question is, and what I'm wondering about is, here we have, the game was created, 2014 was Rune Lords, or 2013, 2014, somewhere around there. Sold out immediately, second print run, massively popular. Then we see things polarize a little bit, as we do with every board game. Some really, really love it. Some not so much. I mean, look, I like Dark Souls, the board game. I'm in the minority with that. I think it works really well. But overall, the feeling and flow of Pathfinder the Adventure card game was very popular. Then we see it join the Adventure League, where now you can play, I want to say, a little bit competitively, and there's promo cards, and there's side adventures, and you buy your class deck. You really, really take ownership of your character. So we have a lot of players buy into that, and I bought some of the packs that intrigued me. I mean, certainly being a completionist, I wanted them all, but it is very, very overwhelming with that. So now we get a second edition, and the idea is to have a core set, a core engine. And now the adventure paths are complete. You buy them separate and they bolt on. And there's some rules changes, some tweaks, some adjustments. Overall, I think very positive. I think it streamlined a lot. It added a couple of things that the game really needed. But most importantly, in my opinion, without turning this into a review type session, it allows you to tweak and adjust the difficulty, not only on the players, but on the experience. So you have normal mode as it's intended to play, but you can also play hard or easy. Plus, they increase the narrative in that now you have an adventure book and there's an actual explanation as to what is going on. All very positive. But what you see now is all the people that were heavily, heavily invested, and it says backwards compatibility. Yes and no. It's not true backwards compatibility because the artwork is different, and admittedly the artwork needed to be upgraded on there. Previous artwork was functional at best. Now this has an artwork style, which I think is important to establish it and establish its presence in the gaming marketplace. Whether you like the artwork or not, again, completely separate podcast vlog topic on there. But it's not quite backwards compatible because it's going to look weird on the table. And some of the rules mechanics don't quite work out on there. The balance isn't on there. It's literally a second edition. It's a re-imaging. It's a break. An example of this would be like Runebound second edition to third edition. The difference is, yes, both of them use kind of interesting movement dice with symbols for terrain, and you move that many hexes, But the rest of the game, other than being set in Terranoth, is completely different, completely re-imaged on there. It's beyond a rebrand. So players that have everything, or mostly everything, are they going to now jump into the core? Some will that really, really love the game, but I'm willing to bet a lot won't. We see this in wargaming. Warhammer 40,000, every time there's a new edition change, the numbers get reset a little bit, and now you have to acquire new players. But now, when I was looking on their website, if I'm looking at this from the perspective of a new player, and I go to their site, and I love the game, maybe I tried it out at a demo, I've got the core, which admittedly, this is not a criticism, it is a stripped-down version of it. It was intended to be. It was intended to be a functional skeleton, AI engine that the adventure paths get plugged in. The adventure paths are, like Curse, are the power behind the game. So I'm an enthusiast. I go there. I go, okay, I'll buy the core. I'm hungry for adventure path. There's only one. There's no news of a new one being released. Maybe a new one will be released, possibly, if the numbers sell well. Well, what does that mean? And of course, look, they have to sell well to justify the publication. But then you see this massive glut of first edition stuff, sets being sold, adventure decks, cards. It's very confusing. And you look and say, well, what do I do? Do I jump back into first edition because there's a lot of stuff, but there won't be new content coming out for that, if anything, and acquisition is going to be harder and harder because there's less and less and less stuff. I'm not getting the most up-to-date rules on there. Like, where do I go? What do I do? So it would have been interesting to see, and maybe they have this ready, and they're just waiting to press that print-on-demand button on there. Have the core and have, like, 2 or 3 adventure paths ready to go. Drop the first when the core was released, which they did, and 6 months after, a few months after, drop that second. Create some serious momentum for that first year and that second year. It just feels like right now they've reintroduced it, re-imaged it, and it's sitting there. And it's a shame because this is one of my top 5 games. I love this game. Even if you're like, Fritz, you're crazy. The game's nuts. It just works on there. So I'm enthusiastic. I'm hungry for some more adventure paths to see how and where we go.